All right. Good evening, everyone. A very, very warm welcome, first of all, to our chief guest, which is DG Sir Abhay Bakre, who is the DG of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. He has made time to join us today here, which we deeply, deeply value. On behalf of CLASP and BEE, a warm welcome to all of you. Today, we are joined by several representatives from climate and environment advocacy groups, healthcare networks, industry representatives, energy experts from across the world to delve into a conversation today about India's efficiency goals. Energy efficiency will be the single largest and most critical source for achieving India's ambition on climate in the near term, delivering on over half of its goal to reduce CO2 emissions by 1 billion tons by 2030. This means that the regulatory, institutional, financing, policy instruments, and broader supporting ecosystem must evolve as it delivers to the scale of India's need. How will energy efficiency in India adapt as it delivers on India's growing ambition on climate mitigation? The Bureau of Energy Efficiency has been making significant strides in enabling the country to meet its energy efficiency goals for decades. Delving into this discussion today, we are delighted to have amidst us again DG Sir Abhay Bakre, the Director General of BEE, in conversation with Vishal Thapa, who is the Senior Director of CLASP, India. Shri Abhay Bakre is the DG of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, focused on initiating new policies and programs to facilitate climate change mitigation and energy transition in the country. Previously, Mr. Bakre was the Joint Development Commissioner in the Ministry of MSME and worked as the Executive Director in PCRA under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, where he initiated fuel conservation policies in the transport and appliance sector. He was also the Executive Director in the Ministry of Railways, where he formulated a GHG reduction roadmap for the Indian Railways. Mr. Bakre is an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and has been an active representative of various energy bodies in India at summits globally. We are honored to have you here today, sir. Vishal Thapa is a senior director at CLASP, helming the India chapter. He brings 22 years of global experience working across climate, energy efficiency, environment, and sustainability. Thank you for moderating today's discussion. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you as we kickstart an evening of riveting discussions in August company. Our virtual attendees on Zoom are encouraged to post questions via chat, which our team will relay to the speakers through the hour. After the discussion, you are all welcome to join us for a dinner and get to know CLASP and BEE further. Team members from both organizations are around for any information you might need. Over to you, Vishal.
Thank you, Karishma. Thank you, Karishma. Thanks for the introduction. Good evening, Mr. Bakre. Thank you again for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. It's a big sacrifice to come on a Friday evening and join this conversation. I'm sure you had many things to do, but thank you very much for coming and joining us. For friends who are joining us from the United States online and the Americas, good morning. For folks joining us from Europe, good afternoon. From people joining from the Africa region, good evening. And for folks joining from East Asia and the Pacific, I hope it was good night a long time ago and you're nicely in bed. You didn't make that big a sacrifice. But as you can tell, we have participants from around the globe. I think that means the world is watching. The stakes are extremely high, climate stakes are high, and it matters. It matters what India will do, what it wants to do, and it also matters what it does not do. Mr. Bakre, as the Director General of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, you and your colleagues have the important task of delivering on energy efficiency goals for India. In the last 5 years, these goals have only gotten bigger, bolder, and more ambitious. Energy efficiency is now at the center stage of India's climate goals, overall climate goals. At Glasgow, for instance, the Prime Minister made a commitment on behalf of India to reduce 1 billion tons of emissions by 2030, and further, to reduce the energy intensity by 45% relative to 2005. Those are big goals. Those were part of a 5-part strategy he outlined, the Panchamrit. So as I look at these goals, sir, I'm curious to understand, in terms of BEE, as this ambition gets bigger, how the overall policy framework, the structural and the institutional framework must also evolve to keep pace and deliver on these more ambitious, bolder, and bigger goals for energy efficiency.
Yeah, thank you first of all for inviting me here. And in fact, I'm delighted to join with all the experts here, the experienced professionals who have actually been there in the different sectors, whether it's industry, appliances, buildings, etc., and actually working not only on the energy efficiency alone, but overall as a climate actions or the climate goals in that. And as you rightly said, the institution of Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which I am heading here, was set up in 2002 as part of a legislature, and it was conceptualized as a central nodal body who can guide, who can develop policies, who can come out with certain regulations which will lead to mandatory policies, and finally shaping up the complete consumer group or the target groups on the demand side to actually nurture the habit, to nurture the design, manufacturing of equipments, appliances, and also some of the larger sectors like buildings and industry to come out with the new technologies. So that was the starting point in 2002. We have come only not a long period, but only 2 decades now. Precisely, we completed in the March 20 years. But the first 10 years, we developed the policies with the initial steps, maybe focusing on certain groups, etc. We didn't think about much on the sectoral linkages. We couldn't focus much on the overall climate ambition. But once we had the first ticket, and when we knew how the consumer is expected to respond, how the consumer is behaving, what are the challenges, what are the goals we can pursue with this, we can pursue a sectoral consumers or the sectoral target groups. Then we got this Paris Agreement, and that completely changed the narrative, the purpose for the energy conservation as a movement. Now we are not only taking energy efficiency only per se of reducing the consumption and just counting on the payback or the money saving. It is now a complete change in the approach. We are looking forward to technologies, the solutions, which will not only reduce the consumption for that particular sector or that particular equipment, but how does it really make the impact on the climate? Whether the new technology which is coming up, is it climate friendly? Is it only reducing the consumption, or is it giving more opportunity on fuel switching? Is it giving much higher level of comforts if it is appliances or any other way? So the purpose or the main objective of energy efficiency has been further broadened, and now to include the climate outcomes. But finally we have come to a stage that now we are developing into an institution with policies involving energy efficiency as the key lever to achieve our overall climate ambitions.
I'm really fascinated on this point and want to pick it up a little bit further. Actually, I had this question a little bit down in the list, okay, but I want to bring it up because you brought up this topic. I guess from this conversation, I sense that energy efficiency is far more multidimensional. It's not just about energy savings anymore. It's about driving technological change. It's the traditional divisions of policy we've thought about, whether it's mitigation or adaptation, sort of like all blending today. What is cooling? Is it mitigation? Is it adaptation? We don't know anymore. So in terms of BEE, particularly the institution, what does this mean for BEE as it takes on a far more multi-dimensional role in which energy efficiency really is, in effect, a starting point.
Yeah, that's completely true, because when we started as an institution, we picked up the potential sectors. We started with appliances, then started some work on the demand side like municipalities, then something on the building side, and then of course the industry side. But today when I see as an institution, we have to see not only the major sectors like industry, transport and buildings, but now I have to go to sub-sector level. I have to see which sector or a sub-sector has a higher growth potential in terms of economical growth, and also at the same time whether that particular sector has a major opportunity in terms of technology shift, in terms of fuel switching. So now institutionally, my different divisions or my policies are formulated more on a sector for specific, technology specific, and it is not only the dimension of energy saving per se, but we need to see how does it really help the entire sector to grow in a much profitable manner. It has to change from the high consuming energy sector to a low consuming or a low carbon sector, and also how does it really also benefit from the overall technological development, making that shift or making that energy transition as affordable as possible. So we also want to take care that there is no additional burden in terms of cost. The transition should not be a costly transition, making it difficult for the consumers to actually adopt, or the industry to actually adopt. So that way my entire the bureau and my divisions are now working on a technology shift or the solutions which are affordable, climate friendly and more effective on a long run, depending on the growth and the opportunities available.
So it's affordable, climate friendly, but also something that's driving economic growth and supporting the transition overall.
Yeah.
So I want to pick up from that and ask you sort of a two-part question. What keeps you awake at night, and what lets you go to sleep very peacefully? So the first part, what keeps you awake at night? In the sense that, this is a big segment. Energy efficiency is now increasingly complex. You've got to worry about it multidimensionally. For you, where is the stress point where you say, oh my God, this is a tough task ahead? Like, what is the thing that you think must be fixed?
Yeah, so that's completely. The good thing which I always feel is that the kind of policies, the kind of initiatives which have been launched, not only by BEE, or maybe in some cases BEE has been only the catalyst, or there are certain policies which have come up with so much of inputs from the expert groups, from the different organizations, institutions, because every organization in its own field are working. So BEE sometimes is coordinated. So when we see the policies rolling out, we are actually thrilled, and the satisfaction level is because the consumer group, the target group, the industry, they are responding in much favorable manner. Initially it was difficult, whether it's appliances or...
So your reach to the consumers is much better now than it was in the past.
And the sensitization among the target groups has been much better now, and now the implementing actors are much more sensitive or much more proactive in taking forward these policies. So that's the satisfying part. Yeah. The second thing, as you said, what keeps me awake is, okay, if that is the case, are we really doing enough to make sure that it is happening? And the biggest challenge comes from the financing. Are we able to give them sufficient technologies right at the cost which can be made available? Or whether are we offering them solutions which are too costly for them to be kind of delayed, or it is making difficult? And at the same time, whether the right kind of financing support is available, whether the financial ease of finance is available, whether sufficient finance is actually rolling out to these projects. It is there, it is happening. In fact, it is up something on 2,500 crore per year. That's the informal numbers, or the figure which we are getting from the banks. But 2,500 against the big opportunity available in terms of in the next decade. So I'm sure that the banks will come forward the way they have done for the renewable side. I think the energy efficiency portfolio also will become quite popular. So at this stage, when the consumer wants some kind of actions to be taken or the technology to be deployed, the technology should be available in a much easier manner, and if possible through a good financial support, which we are trying for.
So finance is obviously one
Financing
of the
is there one sector.
Yeah.
So once that is fixed, I think the rolling out will be much easier and much faster.
I'm going to pause on the question I had next to switch to a question that just has come from one of the participants in the US. So the question is, consumers are central to realizing energy efficiency, and I'm going to change it around a little bit. In your experience, what is the key for achieving consumer behavior change? I guess if I were to rephrase the question a little bit, from BE's perspective, how are you engaging with consumers to try to drive consumer preferences and behavior towards more efficient product and efficiency in general?
Yeah, in fact, the success or the most of the success, or even otherwise, is the result of what kind of response we get from the consumer. Now, how do we really engage? That's a very important thing. The most effective part of any energy efficiency program or a policy is that it picks up slowly. It picks up very slowly, and it has a snowball effect. So this the first few steps are very, very difficult or most challenging. What kind of consumer group we should target? Because once there is a success available, once there is a demonstration, once there are case studies which can be replicated or which can be showcased, then the rolling out is faster. And after a certain time, it picks up on its own. Now, in that first few steps, I may say, it can last a few months. Sometimes it takes a few years or a couple of years. So the right kind of consumer group where we need to engage, who are proactive, who are in, I may say, who are in want of getting some kind of a transformation, who are the consumer group who are ready to transform, or at least if not fully, partially. So we need to identify actually the consumer group for any particular new policy or new initiative who are ready to transform, or who are on the verge of transformation, and then showcase them so that the remaining group or the other consumer group who are just following up can be further showcased. So that's the first few steps are very, very important. And once we engage to the right kind of consumers, I think the rolling out becomes much easier. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it.
And do you feel now, this was related to one of the questions also I had, do you feel now that, because the Bureau and Energy Efficiency in India has now a pretty solid infrastructure that's been built literally over 2 decades, that you feel that what you're talking about as the initial parts, the initial successes, has now been achieved, and we're now at an inflection point where you feel fairly confident that scale up can happen pretty fast, that transformation to support the transition on energy can happen fast? Do you feel that overall infrastructure and energy efficiency is there today?
Institutionally, we have geared up much better as of now in the last 5 years or so, and even beyond. Because as I said, if we pick up the refrigerator, now refrigerator, if I guess put a appliance sector, which is highly sensitive to the consumer or the behavior and the response. So refrigerator is an equipment which is kind of functioning almost 24/7 practically. So if you, when we picked up the refrigerator as a star labeling appliances, the response was really good, because that's a huge saving already accrued to the consumer. But if you pick up the air conditioner and start immediately a very high technology air conditioner, it will be a costly, and it will be a kind of a deterring effect on the star labeling or the efficient appliances. So we picked up the air conditioners and then slowly only started with the minimum air efficiency, then picking up the 3-star, 4-star like that. In 2017-18, now we have changed to inverter type ACs, which were almost like 80% extra cost. But then again, when the benefits of air conditioning star labeling program was there, so the inverter ACs also picked up very fast. After just a gap of 2 years, now more than half of the air conditioners are being sold are inverter type. So that way, even the costlier solutions are getting accepted by the consumers with a little delay only. So that's rolling out now very fast.
Yeah, there's greater consumer awareness and the ability to do this. I'm going to take again another question from one of the participants, and this question comes from Canada. It's actually a two-part question, but I'll ask the first part. India is the only G20 country on track to meet its Paris climate goals. And in fact, I think on energy efficiency, you're a little bit ahead of India's target anyway. And India is aspiring to take a leading role in setting the world agenda on climate change. What ambitions do you think India can set for itself and other member countries on energy efficiency? And particularly, I want to add to that, is there a way that you are also nudging, both developed and other developing countries in terms of from the performance of BEE, and India has had some stellar programs such as Ujala, which have really transformed, for example, lighting in this particular case?
So I'll try to answer this question in kind of a two respect. One in terms of the developed countries and the developing country, because the question is from Canada.
Yeah.
So why India could move ahead as per the Paris Agreement and the G20 or the 2-degree target? Because the policies were available and its rollout were quite strong in terms of. That was the first point. The second point was India is a growing economy. So getting the opportunities on a growing economy have been the key layer. So LEDs. So LED success has actually come because it was getting transformed towards a efficient. So from normal conventional tungsten bulbs, we were working on the CFL, but the LED came. And it was a huge difference between the energy consumption of a normal lighting and the LED lighting. So once the lead was taken by the government, the rolling out was quite faster. And then the complete industry, everything got changed. Nobody wants to purchase anything other than the LED, whether it's a commercial building or restaurant. So that's the story for a developing country. The same thing is happening for cement plant, for the refineries. All the whatever expansion, whatever growth is happening, they're always trying to change to the most efficient one. And that's also another beauty. Whenever you are growing, whenever you are adding,
so it becomes far more easier for us to integrate and leapfrog a little faster on sort of the energy efficiency curve, and that may be one of the reasons.
Yeah. So there is always some kind of an investment to expansion, investment to grow, or some kind of technology upgradation. So industry always wants to actually get the best or the latest one, so that they immediately get the benefits in next 4 to 5 years. Now coming back to the developed countries, there the situation is different. There the challenge is to refurbishment. If there are old offices or only the existing offices, existing residential building stock, etc. So they need to refurbish. So they have a complete different approach. They need to find out, and there the investment doesn't get the return the way it has there. So they will have the developed countries will have to devise different policies to actually roll out the energy efficiency as against the developing countries.
Yeah.
So India has shown leadership how to actually do it in this way. So getting it much faster than what the other countries would have actually
so our adoption can immediately go to initially the highest levels of efficiency. I realize I'm only at like 10% of my notes and we're already at the halfway mark. But I did want to just pause and while I'm taking questions online, if anybody has any questions that I can integrate for the DG, please let me know. If not, I'll sort of switch gears and keep continuing. Okay, Gurpreet, please.
If you can hear me, I can speak without the mic.
Just I think for our online audience, it'd be better if...
Sure.
So thanks for the question, Gurpreet. Go ahead.
So pleased to interact with you, Mr. Bakre, and I'm Gurpreet from ICF.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your thoughts around the whole aspect of just transition, where globally, as the energy transition happens, there is a shift in the skills requirement and retraining needs of people across the supply sector as well as the consuming sectors and industries. So are you looking at changes, or do you think that that's also in the demand side and the industries, there's going to be a need to retrain people to use newer technologies, to use newer practices, and is that an area of work for Bureau of Energy Efficiency now or perhaps in the future?
It's a good question, in fact, but as you rightly said, the what would be the what should be the approach for demand side in particular in that. Since Bureau is actually focusing on mostly on the demand side initiatives where the consumers and the demand sectors are the key areas for focus. So here the just transition is actually happening automatically. We can't deny that it cannot happen. It has to happen. I was just talking like for a simple reason, if we were actually using the fans and any other kind of appliances for cooling, and we are shifting to air conditioners, which are even becoming with a newer technology, etc. So there itself, within the same sector, there is a shift or the skill upgradation happening, and we need a different set of skill sets for the technicians, for the other operators, or even the maintainers. So that's even for a particular appliance. But so it's happening at the appliances level. It will definitely happen in the different industries, the larger industries who will imbibe new technologies. They will shift from the conventional ones to the newer technology. The steel will shift to newer technology, cement, etc. They will get newer options like waste heat recovery, maybe some the upcoming could be the hydrogen base, etc. So, but the skill set, since again I said being a demand side and it is gradually happening over the period, new technologies will come, the new appliances will come, new equipments will be deployed, and new systems will be in place. Even a place like building sectors. So all this entire value chain, the capacity building, the training will happen, and this transition will actually happen in a much smoother manner as far as the demand side is concerned. Yes, there could be some issues, and then definitely we are aware, and obviously there will be a clear roadmap also for the supply side, where there will be a shift from a particular fossil to non-fossil technology. So on the supply side also, there will be a clear roadmap how to have a transition which should be a just transition, and there will be a skill upgradation, there will be a technology shift, etc. So that has to happen. We cannot deny it, and we are aware. The policies are aware, and they will be deployed in such a manner that there is a clear roadmap for just transition.
So in some sense, I guess one of the most understated aspects is the extent to which energy efficiency can be a driver for economic competitiveness, yes, right? And this is the point that I think you are also trying to suggest. And in some sense, I think as all participants in this sector, we perhaps don't do enough of a job trying to quantify really how investments in energy efficiency is not only helping to reduce energy costs, but are also driving competitiveness. You know,
it's driving competitiveness. It is creating jobs. Just because it's a demand side initiatives, most of them, it's difficult to actually quantify.
Yes, exactly.
What kind of shift is happening? What kind of new opportunities are coming because of new air conditioners, and new refrigerators?
The impacts are very diffuse, so it's not single one plant.
Yeah, we are not able to actually quantify in a much kind of effective way, because the way we can calculate or measure the energy, but that kind of impact of energy efficiency initiatives is difficult to. But we are trying to get how the new set of technologies or shift which is happening, or energy transition, how is actually affecting the skill development as well as the job creation.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to switch gears a little bit to an aspect that actually took many people by surprise, but also was very, very interesting for many observers. And this is around the work that BE has done around carbon markets. And around last year, he put out a paper that kind of formulated a broad vision for carbon markets and the idea. And so it caught many people it called many people's attention. We thought everybody was quite intrigued. It's also very complex, no doubt. And I just wanted to ask you, what was sort of the underlying philosophy or motivation that was driving that work? And where do you see that sort of leading towards?
That's going to be, in fact, one policy or one initiative which will have a very, very large impact in a positive manner in all the actions which has happened, and even many more actions which will happen in the coming years or this decade. Actually, BE has had the first round of energy certificate trading. So when we had the second round of certificate trading, or ready for we were trying to go, we had extensive consultation with the industry. Now, on one hand, we were already using energy efficiency as one of the effective tool in meeting our climate mitigation goal almost by half. So the energy transition goals, more than half will come from the energy efficiency, and so in most of the other countries, especially in the developing countries. So when we are meeting our climate goals to energy efficiency, so the trading part, which was only limited to energy saving, was actually advised by most of the industries that we not only want to reduce our energy consumption, we don't want to only limit ourselves to energy efficiency or energy saving measures in terms of technology, but we are already gearing up as per the overall national policy and national targets to switch to a cleaner fuel or the cleaner technology. So why don't you also incentivize us in terms of, not only in terms of energy saving certificate, but please give us the carbon certificate, which is much broader commodity, which is much more recognizable effort in terms of that. And then when we tried to find out, and of course under the consultation with the Ministry of Power, Ministry of Environment, they said, why don't you expand your own energy saving market into a carbon market? So that was the first step. And it was actually a good suggestion coming from industry. And basically we are trying to leverage only our existing part, and we need only 10% changes to already an existing framework, which is very nicely working on energy efficiency, to make it much more broader and getting then many sectors, many more actors, consumers, and there will be a much larger participation from the private sector, getting the cost of emission reduction reduced. A lot of investment will come through climate action, energy efficiency by doing so. So why shouldn't we do that?
Yeah.
And I think the industry and all other consumers are welcoming this initiative.
So obviously it's attempting to make some linkages between efficiency, emissions, and then the trading of it to reduce the cost. But is there also an effort to use more and more sort of these market-based instruments in policy? Is that one of the direction that you think in general we might move towards across different policies, more market-based instruments like trading?
No, already the energy saving certificates
is trading based.
It is trading. It's a market based. The only limitation was that the group was the sectors were limited. Only the few sectors and few consumers or the few industry units, they were involved. So both the supply as well as demand, they were limited to few actors. So we started with some 400 plus industry. Now we have come to 1100 industry. But of course, they are the large industries. Almost half the industrial consumption is involved. But again, it is only the number of units are only 1100 as against lakhs of consumers or industry units or establishment. So once we want to make it broad based and convert into a carbon, then carbon trading commodity or carbon certificate, it is easy for any sector to actually participate. We are only converting the energy certificate into a carbon equivalent.
Correct.
But then that gives much broader and involvement of the...
And it can include more sectors as well, more variety of sectors. I want to again just try to integrate a question that comes from the US. And, I guess across the US and Europe, there are many institutions, there are many agencies that are looking to broadly support the work of energy efficiency in India. So the question that they have here is, which areas do you think would be the most beneficial for partners to support in terms of this further development of energy efficiency? Which are the segments that you think you would encourage them to seek out partnership with BE or elsewhere? Which areas you think would be the most and highest impact for them?
I can pick up three key areas. One is, of course, cooling. Cooling is one area because, as I said, today we have only about 6 to 8% households using air conditioners. Even if we go to, say, 20% of households using air conditioners, or most of the commercial building stock, which will come, majority of them on air conditioned stock. So cooling will be one area. Cooling, we are in a good trajectory. But in coming 2 decades, the cooling demand will grow very high or exponentially. And we are already trying to find all the solutions which can actually optimize the cooling demand so that in future, in few years or even in a decade, the most efficient air conditioners or air conditioning solutions are available, cooling solutions are available in the country, or maybe one of the best in the world. We want that to develop. So that's one area, because there is a growing demand on the cooling for the next 2 decades, and we need to reap this opportunity to get the best technology and the best solutions for cooling efficiency. That is the topmost. Associated thing is that currently we have the industry sector as the highest energy consuming sector. But in next 2 decades, the building stock will be developed. There will be services, the establishments, the residential building stock, and most of them which will be built, we need to get them a very high efficient building stock. So how to get the efficient building stock, whether it's a commercial or residential, in a most affordable manner. How to get the good materials, how to get the good design, how to get the best depending on the climate zone, etc. So if the building efficiency is improved, so we'll not be doing the same mistake what the developed countries have done, and now they have to refurbish it to an efficient stock. So we need to get the building stocks more efficient, as efficient as possible. So that's the building area, and there is a huge opportunity. The last thing, but most important, is that something which we know what to do, but we are actually unable to do in a more effective manner, the SME sector. SME sector is very much important in terms of job creation, their flexibility, their change in shift. And there are many technologies available. In the SME sector, they can reduce their energy consumption drastically. They can save, they have 30 to 40% potential. They are quite flexible in changing the technology. And the kind of technology which we are aware and can be replicated through a good financing system, the SME sectors will have huge benefit. They will improve their competitiveness, and they will become best SME sectors in most of the cases. And that's what we want. So that's one area where we need good collaboration. If the SME sector can also be made very, very efficient in the coming decade.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. The 3 points you pulled out: cooling, building stock, and SME sector. And I guess this is also consistent what you said previously, which is that really your policies are beginning to target what is going to emerge, right? What is the future? So AC stock is going to grow massively, right? Cooling demand is going to grow massively. So is the building growth in buildings. And so as policies emerge, you're looking not just at what exists, but also what is going to be the future drivers of demand and energy and emissions as well. So the policies are sort of beginning to target those sort of segments.
Yeah.
So as we sort of round the last lap towards this conversation, again, I just wanted to check if there's any questions from the audience here. Any questions? Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bakre. It's been very inspiring to see that how B has been shaping, and the country is really going in your leadership, in this dimension. So a big congratulations and thank you for all your leadership there. I've been very fascinated on this building stock which you mentioned. And there are many different nodal agencies, the new buildings which are coming in, and so much will happen in the Indian context. So one is to ensure that how the buildings are made so that lesser cooling is required, more efficient, it becomes more efficient, and also from an energy point as well, because it is also, the solar could also be a part of the generation itself. So India is also a pretty complex, to navigate the regulatory framework is also very complex. So we as manufacturers, how we should navigate, especially to ensure that, there is a lot of acceleration can happen in that building stock subject which you mentioned.
See, as you rightly said about the building stock, the experience of B has been, although it is only 20 years or 2 decades, what we have experienced is any new initiative, we always want to start with a voluntary basis. We want to pick up the most effective target group. We want to start in a voluntary basis, and we want to have some kind of a capacity building. Then we want to see whether the burden or the impact of that transformation vis-a-vis the benefits which are there are sufficient for the consumer or the beneficiary to actually attract it or to drive it on its own. And then slowly we get into the regulatory part in the mandatory. That's the first part. So when we talk about the building sector also, and as you said, the new concept is to actually infuse or align or integrate more and more renewable part and the non-fossil part in that. So in that regard also, now we have launched the Shunya rating. The Shunya is rating, again, we had the different ratings on the star rating for the buildings. We had the ECBC, the Energy Conservation Board, the Eco Nivas Sahita, again these are the residential building, the different levels of the certification. So in that regard, when we have come out with the different levels of 20% saving in ECBC, 35 in ECBC plus, and then super ECBC around 45 to 50. We want to go further steps to integrate the renewables. And again, for initial few years, until the market is kind of mature enough, there are sufficient manufacturers of materials, there are sufficient designers, architects available, quite well conversant. The consumers are also sensitized to adopt the new policies or new ratings. Till such time, we would like to keep it in a voluntary stage, and that in that case, we would expect that the experts and the professionals in this field will actually themselves drive the consumers to adopt for a better rating, for the better rating, which includes integration of renewables. They may even opt for a Shunya rating. There are now net zero buildings coming up. So in that manner, I think the manufacturers have to actually offer solutions which can to a particular target group, and also engage with the experts and the professionals who can offer good solutions to key consumers, and that can be replicated. So that should be the policy. The mandatory part should come at the end, in a much later date, when the things and the ecosystem is actually mature enough for that.
Thank you for your question, Jitendra sir. As we sort of round off to the last 10 minutes or so of this program, I want to draw your attention, sir, to basically two programs at BEE, which have sort of been its flagship programs. You know, the Standards and Labeling Program, which now has 28 programs, very highly successful program, drives almost a quarter to 30% of energy savings and emission reductions. And then the PAD scheme. And I'm wondering how you see the integration of these two programs, in the sense that how can we use, you know, the expanding scope of SNL, particularly towards industrial and, as you mentioned, SMEs. Just for instance, induction motors would have massive impact. What are the steps we need to take, and both in terms of the vision you have at BEE, but also for the stakeholders in general, what can we do to support this transformation of these, you know, accelerated deployment of this expanding scope of star label products, particularly when it touches on small and medium enterprises?
Yeah, so now having understood the complete journey of energy efficiency or the energy conservation in the key sectors, and when we are opening up to the subsectors or the subsector based technologies, now actually we are in a right stage to move on to a situation where the discussion on energy efficiency should not be limited to only the energy manager. In fact, the one plus point, of course, the carbon market is another incentive which will drive. The energy efficiency or energy transition, if I can include or broad base it, should actually become a topic or a priority to the board management, the board level or the management level. So the management or the investors in that particular company, their business decisions, they should have energy efficiency or energy conservation, energy transition, whatever we may say, a prime consideration while taking further management decisions, including any other expansion or technology. So if that is the case, the entire benefit, like today, if any individual consumer or a household is going to purchase a particular equipment, especially the household FMCG equipment or appliances, he is always looking forward a 3-star, 4-star like that. But whether is it happening in the industry sector, is it happening in SME sector, that's the question. So having seen the success on the household appliances, and it's of course affecting every household, so that company manager, that company CEO or his board of directors should also understand why not its motors, compressors, boilers, furnaces, all should be made to the best of the efficiency available in the country. And once that kind of preference comes, the manufacturers, the designers will actually offer better models in the market.
And
B is
potentially
ready
could make it easier to finance also.
yeah,
Right?
and because it is a business case, it is a company, it is a industry who is doing the business. For them, it's much easier to replicate or replace their own old technologies, whether it's a compressor, boiler, or all other heavy equipments, to a more efficient equipment. For them, the benefits are immense. And B is ready to actually get into that. We have launched the energy conservation guidelines for the large industry, where we can see what if you are having this much size of capacity of your process or your boiler, etc., what should be your efficiency level. Same we have launched for the energy conservation guideline for the SME sector. So now we need to, all the auditors, the experts, to actually promote energy efficiency through equipment, machineries, not only just limiting to household appliances or general equipments, to even the deeper equipment, the technically complex equipments or which are otherwise
Industrial,
available,
commercial grade.
to drive them towards more efficient ones, so that the capital goods manufacturer also will offer a better option. They will offer better boilers or compressor like that.
Yeah.
So that drive should actually happen in the industrial sector.
Yeah, so there's a expansion from just household targeting to more industrial
And the maximum benefit will actually happen to the SME sector, because they have a variety of equipment, they have different size of equipment, and if they start getting a very efficient equipment at affordable, at a market price, then they will be the most beneficiary sector for that. Yeah.
So as we wind down, just one or two more questions, and again, it's coming from North America. One of the things is obviously as energy efficiency becomes more broader in scope, there's also a need to make it more national in nature. So states have to be involved. And I know that one of the areas that you've paid a lot of attention over the last few years is trying to engage more with states, although it's always part of the Energy Conservation Act. Where do you think states have a role to play, and what as BE are you trying to do in terms of engaging with the states?
Yeah, it's in fact a very good question, a very, very important aspect of that. Energy efficiency, as we all know, is basically the demand side initiative primarily. The second aspect is that it is a cross-sectoral. So it doesn't limit to a particular sector. Like, so there are intersectoral linkages, and that makes more challenging in terms of getting different authorities, different departments, different organizations together working on energy efficiency as a movement. Now, most of them, they are not driven, or they are not kind of controlled or piloted from the central government level or the federal government level. They are depending on the local areas. So most of the actions have to happen at the local area, at this province level, the state level, the district level, or even at the local municipality or the ULB level. So in that case, the strengthening their cooperation, their interdepartmental coordination at the state level and the district level, and then coordination with the central agency like Bureau is quite important. So in that regard, all the states in India have already nominated designated agencies who are in regular touch with us. They are driving our policies there in states. So, but we want that to actually take a kind of a formal shape. We want the way we develop the national targets, each state can develop their own targets depending on their consumption pattern, depending on the sectoral importance. Somewhere it is the agriculture which so they can have more opportunities there, building sector, transport sector, industry, like that. So the states are actually gearing up. They are doing really good initiative in developing their state action plans for energy efficiency. That will have in both manners. That will get all the benefits, not only of reducing their overall energy demand, that will give technology upgradation, job creation, and then getting the overall climate actions and their their role in contributing to the national climate goals. So in that way, states are gearing up.
Yeah, so they will become more important
Yeah,
actors.
and I'm really confident. I'm in fact the report or the progress what we have seen from the states is quite encouraging. It's quite satisfying that they are gearing up to take on the state level action plans to contribute to the national movement. Yeah.
Great. So I knew that 1 hour was not going to be much time for this conversation, but then I didn't know that it was really going to go this fast. So, but I want to end with one last question that brings me back to the theme of. Sorry, there's one question, but I'll come to that. The theme that I started off with, which is India matters, and what India does matters, what India doesn't do matters, and somebody has popped in a question from the US that says India and BE are seen as potential leaders for energy efficiency in South Asia and many parts. How could India share best practices with other countries in this region to accelerate EE more broadly? And I would take that a little bit further. How could we use BE's experience and its successes to also nudge countries to do more in terms of their own actions?
Yeah, that's one of the also reason that how BE could actually engage in most of the partners, both within the country, both at the state level, but in particular outside the country also. There are many good organizations, agencies, expert institutes outside India who have been in touch with us, who have shared their knowledge. We have shared the knowledge there. So one thing is the Clean Energy Ministerial, which is a very, very important group of, or I can say a clean energy forum, where all the 28 member countries, where BE and the BE is of course the nodal agency as far as India is concerned. But India is also one of the leader in most of the energy efficiency and the demand side work streams there. So we have regular engagement through Clean Energy Ministerial, which is there are different work streams there. About 20 work streams are there. So they are dedicated something on appliances, something on building, something on EV, the electric vehicles, etc. So there we share each other, and wherever BE or India is having a good success story like LEDs or buildings, etc., we are sharing with our other group members or other countries, including the organization of that interest, regularly through seminars, webinars, etc. So that's one area. And India is going to host the Clean Energy Ministerial next year. So again, there will be a huge opportunity next year for all the countries and the relevant experts to engage with India's success and the story, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, like in appliances, etc. So that's one area. On the other hand, there are other forum, of course, where on a sectoral basis there can be engagement. We are in touch with most of the bilateral dialogues on all prominent countries. We have the bilateral dialogue because energy transition is quite an important agenda at the world level.
Yeah.
So Ministry of Power is engaged with almost all leading countries, and whenever such dialogue happens, the energy efficiency or the energy demand side management is also one of the key area, apart from other topics like smart grid distribution, hydrogen. So through bilateral dialogues, there are always opportunities available. But we have seen a good exchange of information. We have learnt a lot. I may say that yes, BE got benefited from the exchange of information, and we also got a feedback that our success stories or our lessons learned or challenges have been shared with other countries, and they've got also benefits out of that.
So I should really end it here, but there's no way that I can deny Poonam ma'am and Snigdha the one last question. So if somebody could please pass the mic to them, please go ahead, Poonam ma'am.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
DG sir, you are leading the India's energy efficiency initiative. I am really keen to know your thoughts and your take on the whole, the divide between the developed and the developing world over the, historical responsibility for where we are today in terms of global, the global warming position. To what extent? Because I mean, if we talk about energy intensity and if we compare with developed countries, we are already at a much better level. So how do we, kind of balance the two? So what is your take on it is something I'm interested to know.
See, quite honestly, that's a kind of a question which is slightly out of the energy efficiency domain, and of course not even directly related to bureau as such, because it's kind of a national perspective or a national approach which there is a Ministry of Environment who has to take actually in that. But if I relate that to energy efficiency, I think I mentioned here, at any point of time when you are in a trajectory, yes, there is a different aspect, the historical responsibility of the carbon space, etc. That's Ministry of Environment, that's the overall technology. But if we see from energy efficiency perspective, any point of time, and at least the key sectors, whether it's industry or a transport or this thing, you will always find that the current or the latest technology will be used by the consumer. And that's the most effective part of energy efficiency policy. Ultimately, it is the consumer who has to take a call. Consumer can be anything. It could be a household consumer, it could be an organization, it could be a corporate, it could be a steel manufacturer. But when he has to take a decision, so in terms of technology, in terms of its energy efficiency part, his decision will always be based on what is available right now in the most efficient and most affordable manner. So if that is the case, you can't expect a new steel plant will be built up on the technology which was available in 1980. Or you can't expect someone to construct a building or an office which is having as inefficient building stock which was available in 1990. So whoever is going to develop now, who is going to purchase something, who is going to construct something or design something, will always be based on the today's technology or the most efficient and the most affordable. So in that case, the developing country like India will always have opportunity to keep on growing. Of course, the historical response nobody can deny that was there, and there is definitely much. I may use the word inefficient use. It has been there, and by the developed country. But that's entirely a different topic to be not beyond the bureau's mandate or the authority or discussion point. So energy efficiency is concerned, yes, every stock or every sector has to grow with the most efficient one.
Thank you, Punamant, for that question. And I think it was, it's always a complicated question. And it's glad you saved it for the last. And I'm also amazed after a full day of work, you can still answer that question so succinctly. So it's amazing. But I think the general inspiration I draw from that response is really energy efficiency as a pathway to economic growth, to take care of older inefficiencies.
So I'll just ask one thing. In fact, that reminds me that leads to me sometimes when I say what is energy efficiency, when ask slightly in a different manner, then I just ask him, are you going to purchase a car or a scooter? I said yes. What do you think should be the mileage for that? Then he will tell me the mileage, which is mileage or the kilometers per liter, the liters per kilometer or kilometers per liter available today. I said, why don't you purchase a mileage of 10? Why are you asking me? I said, that's the energy efficiency. This was available 10 years back. Had I asked this question to you 10 years back, you would have given me that I am purchasing a car of 12 mileage. Today you are purchasing of 24.
Yeah.
That is the energy efficiency.
Yeah.
Today you will not go and purchase back to 12.
Exactly.
So that's the. So you have to purchase always whatever is available, what is going to be available in the future.
Yeah. No, excellent. I think that's a great way to bring this conversation to a close. And I want to invite Karishma to do the honors once again to quickly wrap it up.
Thank you, Vishal. We are really grateful to have had you, DG sir. And on behalf of CLASP, I would also like to thank everyone from BEE that has made this event possible in collaboration with us. We are also very grateful to have all of you as our lovely audience today, who not only hold a keen interest in the topic, but are also actively pursuing a mission for change alongside us. We are very thankful for all of you, to all of our audiences online who have joined us in this discussion. DG Sir, we thank you for chalking out the time to be part of this event today out of your busy schedule. Due thanks to Pravati ma'am also, whose efforts have enabled us to host this event today. We would like to thank BEE's directors, joint directors, project engineers, government officials from BIS, NABL, CESL, representatives from the industry, implementing partners, and international organizations. We would like to offer a small token of our gratitude, thoughtfully put together by our team. Vishal, a few words on the token of appreciation for DG Sir.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So, sir, in appreciation of you joining, I just wanted to give you this little token of appreciation. So this is a carbon offset. It's 4.5 tons. And so DG Sir can now drive his car of any efficiency that he chooses for 1 year and be completely carbon neutral. Okay. So thank you very much for taking the time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great. So thank you all for joining. Please do join us for dinner. And to all the participants who also joined online, thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.